I will pass on later to you the corrections I have asked Jakarta Post to make because there are a number of areas they have misquoted me, and the Jakarta Post has responded that they will do so. So that's the first thing. The second point is that the MACC has sent me a letter yesterday requesting for an interview with me in the light of the media statements that has appeared yesterday. I have consulted my lawyer and I will make my appearance on Friday at Putrajaya at about 10 in the morning.
You say that our government is being very arrogant. So do you think the minister who made statement yesterday calling you unethical and all that, do you think they are being also very arrogant?
Yes, of course they're very arrogant. As a government who wants to ensure good governance, it must listen to the people, especially members of the civil society who work with communities that are marginalized, that have their voices suppressed. And when we raise those concerns, it is a responsibility of the government to respond openly and see what changes can be made instead of being in a state of denial. And you know, who has tarnished the image of this country, if not this government? For 2 consecutive years, the US report put us under the watch list, under the human trafficking report. Isn't that shameful? And who has tarnished, if not the government of the day, not us? And that itself should give us a strong cue for this government to respond effectively, instead of continuing to be in a state of denial. When 2 countries have frozen the recruitment of domestic workers, who has shamed, if not this government? As an ASEAN member, when we should be leader, what do we do? These are questions I am asking the government to respond and answer.
Do you realize that your statement will tarnish the image of Malaysia?
It will not tarnish the image of Malaysia, because I am talking about human rights protection here, the rights of protection of persons, of individuals, of migrants. And it is our responsibility as an organization to raise the issue so that changes will be made and corrections done in the system to ensure protection of rights. What is wrong about it? When we correct what is wrong, when we put the wrong to right, then we are raising our standard and recognition. And that is what we should aim to do. I think this is very, very crucial and very important. It is part of good governance. And what I'm pushing for is good governance. And it's fundamental because it not only affects the migrant workers, it affects our workers. And as I explained, you create a kind of underclass, an exploitative group. And therefore, the locals will also be asked to be in the same form of exploitation, which is not correct. And so, we also put Malaysian workers at risk, or employers will not want Malaysian workers because they will definitely ask for higher standards. You see? So you have to see it in that framework.
So, sorry, you see, it sees that Malaysia is completely unsafe for migrant workers from Indonesia, and you insist that they continue to freeze Malaysia to export.
Yes, I think the signals are very clear, you know. The signals are very clear. And yesterday there was even demonstrations in front of our embassy in Indonesia over the death of the 3 migrants. Yeah, it continues because then people begin to see it as an unsafe place. Now, when I went to Semarang to investigate into the whole recruitment of migrant workers, now I met with families, with heads of villages, with the labor department, with all the different sectors there. And And the point that came through was Malaysia is not safe, especially for the informal sector. Now, even for the formal sector, they said they want to see who are the factories, who are the companies recruiting, what is the contract, what are the terms and conditions of employment. Unless all that is placed, only they want to get the children to come over the side. And what does it tell us? Yeah, and that was my visit to Semarang, and this is what I got. So it is not safe, as currently the reality is.
And you don't think that your statement is unpatriotic as claimed by Datuk Masno?
As I just stated, it is not unpatriotic. I will be unpatriotic if I remained silent and allowed this harm to continue on people. I will be unpatriotic if I allowed bad governance to be the dominant form, corruption to exist. Now, I think it's very important that I insist that I am patriotic because I want to put right what is wrong.
You also then disagree that your statements would affect bilateral relations between Malaysia and Indonesia at this point?
Now, if you look, it has been almost 3 years since Indonesia froze the recruitment. Now, it is not just my statement that is put, it is the outcry in Indonesia that has continued the freeze because the Indonesian people have yet to see a clear protection framework, a legal framework for domestic workers. Where is the standard contract? Where is the decent wage? When the MOU was signed, I think last year, or what? May last year, right? Yeah, May last year. What was our government stated? It stated that let the market forces decide. Now, what market forces in domestic work? What commodity are we trading in? Are we saying the human being is the commodity to be traded and valued, and therefore you decide on the minimum wage? That's not correct. Because the domestic worker works in a most isolated and individualized work environment, that it is really more challenging and accountable to the state to ensure protection of her rights. Yeah, unlike where you have a large group of workers who can organize and see to protection of their rights. For the domestic worker, it's a different environment. Therefore, it is up to the state to protect. And so, as long as that is not done, it is the government of the day that puts at risk the bilateral agreement rather than my statement.
So you are tagging this as a modern day slavery, as you said earlier?
Yes, and the last US report stated that very clearly. If you go and look at the US report last year, it stated very clearly that's what it is, particularly in domestic work. That's modern day slavery.
Pihak yang mahu Puan memohon maaf kepada because of that statement.
Apa sebab saya nak memohon maaf? Saya, my statement yang benar apa yang berlaku di bawah. Yang benar apa yang berlaku dan kezaliman yang dibuat kepada pekerja-pekerja migran di sini. Saya tak dapat tak betul kalau saya mohon maaf. Tak salah. Saya tak salah. So, apa sebab saya nak mohon maaf? In fact, kerajaan mesti mohon maaf kepada saya. Sesiapa yang cakap saya traitor, saya kecam negara, nak minta maaf kepada saya dan Tenaganita.
MalaysiaKini.com.
Malaysia Kini.
For the Malaysia Kini.